Welcome to the People's Game Show. I'm your host, Samin, and these are our three contestants today.
Hello, I'm Ava.
I'm John. I'm Sarah.
Time to start. Okay, today we're going to be talking about Unit 3 and all its questions. So, describe the struggle for Louisiana to define its borders and become a state in 1812.
Oh, me. Our character.
Okay, John, what is your answer?
No one liked Louisiana.
Wrong. Who wants to answer it? Ava.
Louisiana became a state in 1812. In 1812, Congress approved Louisiana's statehood, and President James Madison eagerly signed it into law. Statehood actually preceded the final determination of Louisiana's borders, which underwent minor revisions until the Transcontinental Treaty finally established the boundaries once and for all. The Battle of New Orleans in the War of 1812 provided both white Louisianians and the federal leadership with an ideal opportunity to celebrate expansion and statehood.
Very nice. 1 point for Ava. Now, number 2. Technical difficulties.
We can edit this out.
How did New Orleans economically and geographically develop during the early 1800s?
Ooh.
Was that John?
Yes.
John. Number 2.
What was the question?
How did New Orleans economically and geographically develop during the 1800s?
It got bigger.
Wrong. Who else has an answer?
Me.
Sarah,
Yes.
answer.
Can you repeat the question?
How did New Orleans economically and geographically develop during the 1800s?
In 1800, control of New Orleans returned to France, but just for 3 years, because in 1803, Napoleon sold the entire Louisiana territory to the United States. Just 1 year after the Louisiana Purchase, the Haitian Revolution brought an influx of French-speaking immigrants to New Orleans, followed by another wave of immigrants from someplace in 1809 to
Why?
to 1810.
We're gonna have to edit that, you egg!
To 1810, with French, Spanish, Creole, Acadian, African, and now Haitian and Dominican settlers, the city started to become a cosmopolitan destination, while remaining notorious for its
Wilderness.
and frontier feel. Like, by 1810, New Orleans was the largest city in the South and the 5th largest in the United States.
Very good. Point to number
Sarah.
3. How were the people of Louisiana affected by the War of 1812, specifically the Battle of New Orleans?
Me.
Ava.
The American victory in the Gulf region forced the British to recognize the United States' claims to Louisiana and West Florida to ratify the Treaty of Ghent, which ended the war. The Battle of New Orleans also marked the state's political incorporation into the Union.
Correct. Point for Ava. Next question. What was the lasting impact of the Battle of New Orleans
Me.
on Louisiana and its citizens? John.
Thank you. What question is this?
Number 4.
Okay. Andrew Jackson placed New Orleans under martial law before the Battle of New Orleans and refused to lift it for months after the battle. Newspapers and citizens were censored and constitutional rights were suspended for 4 months. While many of the residents of the of New Orleans were happy about the outcome of the battle, they almost revolted against Jackson due to the harshness of martial law. In the end, Jackson ended up paying a fine for being contempt of court after he imprisoned a judge, and he lifted martial law on March 13th. America's lopsided defeat of one of the best militaries in the world also gave them a strong sense of patriotism after the battle.
Correct. Point for John.
Time to continue.
Number 5. How did the cotton gin transform the southern United States?
Me.
Ava.
Now that cotton is easier to clean and since it grows easily, cotton became the #1 cash crop in the South. The farmers needed more land to grow cotton. They took the land from Native Americans. The farmers needed more workers. Slaves were free labor that the farmers needed to harvest the cotton.
Correct. Point for Ava. Next question. Describe life on a plantation for the slave.
Ooh, I know.
Yes. John.
Life on the fields meant
Wrong. Wrong.
Wrong.
I think Sarah wants to go.
Oh, yes, I know.
Sarah.
Life on the fields meant working sun up to sundown 6 days a week and having food sometimes not suitable for an animal to eat. Plantation slaves lived in small shacks on a dirt floor and with little or no furniture. Life on large plantations with a cruel overseer was often the worst. However, work for a small farm owner who was not doing well could mean not being fed.
Correct. Number 7. What is the lasting legacy of the plantation system on Louisiana? John.
Oh no!
Do you not know the answer?
Maybe.
Ava.
Yes.
So what is the lasting legacy of the plantation system on Louisiana?
Racism.
Wrong. Sarah. Do you have an answer?
I do! Oh, your hair's caught in my mouth. Let me, hold on.
You can go.
Okay.
Flossing.
Sorry. Racism, which was the subconscious reason for slavery, is still very much alive in today's society. It is a direct repercussion of the need for one race to become superior to another. Slavery bore the seeds for racism in the society today. It provided a sense of entitlement for individuals belonging to a superior race and created an inferiority complex among those people who belonged to a marginalized race. The lines that were drawn between black and white began in the days of slavery, where generations grew up with the notion that this is the manner in which the two races were supposed to coexist.
Correct. Point for Sarah. Number 8. What is the cultural legacy of the antebellum period on Louisiana?
Me.
Ava.
Slaves performed most of the manual, skilled, and domestic tasks on Louisiana plantations. They made up slightly less than half of Louisiana's population. I'm doing my best. Louisiana joined the Confederate States of America Louisiana joined the Confederate States of America. Starting in the 1830s, railroads began to improve transportation, but a lack of both planning and planning. What is that supposed to say, Sabine? What is it supposed to say?
Take that in capital.
But a lack of planning, especially after the nationwide panic of 1837, made their growth more sporadic. In 1835, one of the first railroad ventures connected New Orleans and the resort of Carrollton. The streetcar line still exists today. As the era went on, people, particularly in the North, became more adverse to slavery. These people were called abolitionists and often fought for the abolition of institutions as well. South, not just slavery. By the end of the antebellum period, slavery was the hot topic and was, most historians believe, the cause of the Civil War.
Correct. Point for Ava.
Question.
Yes.
What other cause could have been, like, what else could have caused the Civil War?
Besides slavery?
Yes.
That was not a focal point of my research. Next question. Number 9. What is the economic legacy of the antebellum period on Louisiana?
Ooh, I know.
Where are the other contestants?
Sorry, they had to use the bathroom.
It's the middle of the show. Thank you.
I can't help it.
Where is Sarah? John.
I had to touch up my tears.
Okay. What is your answer, Sarah?
Crops such as cotton and sugar drastically increased in production and thus brought more profit into Louisiana. By the end of the antebellum period, the South produced 75% of the world's cotton supply.
Correct. Point for Sarah. Now, where is John?
Oh.
There he is. Number 10. How did the issue of state rights and slavery divide the country in half? Oh,
Okay.
this isn't ASMR. Say your answer loudly for the audience to see.
The people in the North were against slavery, while the people in the South were for slavery. The Northern people didn't need slaves due to the very little. Whoever wrote the script needs to.
It's right. You just can't read, Ava.
What do you mean? This isn't scripted.
What is this? The Northern people didn't need slaves due to the very little amount of agriculture they had, whereas the South, where they had much more agriculture, felt that they needed slaves. Slavery was considered a state's right by the Southerners. Many of these Southerners felt that their state's rights were being ignored, and this contributed to the Civil War, which is so ironic considering America was based off gaining freedom.
Correct. Point for Ava. Number 11. Where'd Ava go? She needs to hurry on stage. Number 11. Why did Louisiana secede from the Union?
I know.
Sarah.
When Louisianians shared with other Southerners commitment both to slavery and to opposition to federal interference with an institute either in the state or territories. Coincidentally, the rise of a sectional Republican Party dedicated to stopping slavery's expansion caused Louisiana to reevaluate their allegiances to the United States.
Correct. Point for Number 12. Why was the Union capturing New Orleans a key piece to the Union winning the Civil War?
So the whole time with the
Oh,
key,
me.
basically
Ava.
just be postponed.
It was important to winning the war
It's
because
fine.
the fort was
She's
kind of
totally
cool.
clean. She smells like a baby.
Wrong. Anyone else have
I
it?
just hosed her down outside. It was okay.
No.
Okay. The correct answer is
She's
having fought past Fort
No,
Jackson
just
and
like,
St.
you know,
Philip,
I had her
the
change
Union was
the milk.
unopposed
So we're gonna
in
meet her
its
tomorrow,
capture
but
of the
I'm
city
gonna go
itself,
shoot a
which
shot.
was spared the destruction and suffered by many other southern cities.
Right?
However, the controversial and confrontational administration of the city by its U.S. Army military governor caused lasting resentment.
Okay.
This capture of the largest Confederate city was a major turning point in an incident of international importance. Next question. Number 13. What were the effects of the Civil War on Louisiana?
Me.
Ava.
Slavery was brought to an end within Louisiana. The absence of military-age white males, the disruption of sugar and cotton trade, rampant inflation, lack of credit, and the presence of an occupation army and some Confederates as well all contributed to tremendous suffering of the civilian
And that's the
population.
key to
Correct.
the front
Point
door.
for Ava.
Yeah.
Number
I
14.
don't know why you don't have.
What was the legacy of the Civil War on Louisiana?
Me.
Sarah.
African Americans were able to slowly gain rights after having the label of slave taken off of
Well,
them.
yeah.
More so. Sorry.
Stop hitting each other!
Well,
Oh
Don't-
god,
you're not supposed to
I'm
hit
sorry,
me.
my arm.
John, stop hitting Sarah.
No,
In the
what?
in the brain.
My arm!
And you mean your body. Okay, number 14. Continue, John.
I'm like a long
I thought it was.
Continue, Sarah. I have memory loss.
We switch, at least.
More civil rights movements allowed in the area of an abundance of whites finally saw the blacks as people who were willing to fight for their country and rights.
Correct. Point for Sarah.
Well, good.
Number 14.
Um,
Number 15.
well, if you haven't-
Describe presidential reconstruction and congressional reconstruction. Ava.
Presidential Reconstruction was proposed by President Johnson as a more lenient Reconstruction plan towards the South. He wanted to issue pardons to most of the ex-Confederates. Johnson believed the Southern states should decide the course that was the best for them. He also felt that African Americans were unable to manage their own lives. He certainly did not think that African Americans deserved to vote. In early 1866, congressional Republicans seized control.
Okay, well, we can start this drive. This is
What's
drive.
taking so long?
Her brain stopped.
And also, there's gas.
Technical difficulties. Give us like 30 seconds.
Okay. Congressional Republicans seized control of Reconstruction from President Johnson, and the Congressional Reconstruction began.
No, I'm still billing for you, but.
I regret this. Whew. Congress denied representatives from the former Confederate states in their congressional seats, passed by the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and wrote the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, extending citizenship rights to African Americans and guaranteeing them equal protection of the laws. The 14th Amendment also reduced representation in the Congress of
I know, I'm really.
any southern state that deprived African Americans of the vote. In 1870, the country went even further by ratifying the 15th Amendment, which gave voting rights to black men. The most radical proposals advanced during the Reconstruction to confiscate plantations and redistribute portions to the freemen were defeated.
Okay, that's correct. Point for Ava. Number 16. What were the economic, political, and social effects of the two different plans of Reconstruction?
Me.
Okay, John.
Presidential Reconstruction.
Nice. Start over.
Presidential Reconstruction. Many southern states in 1865 and 1866 successfully enacted a series of laws known as the Black Codes, which were designed to restrict freed black activity and ensure their availability as a labor force. They engaged many
They go sneak into the.
and raised many in the North, including numerous members of Congress, which refused to see congressmen and senators elected from the southern states. In early 1866, Congress passed the Freedmen's Bureau and Civil Rights Bill and sent them to Johnson for his signature. The first bill extended the low life of the Bureau, while the second defined all persons born in the United States as national citizens who were to enjoy equality before the law. Johnson vetoed the construction bills, which eventually was the cause of his impeachment. Congressional Reconstruction states constitutions during the years of radical Southern public life
When are you coming back? I can't wait to see you.
were the most progressive in the region's history. Black participation in Southern public life after 1867 would be the most radical development of Reconstruction. Blacks won election to Southern state governments and even to the U.S. Congress. During this period, the Southern's first state-funded public
What's
systems and laws against racial discrimination and the public remain.
Okay.
Oh,
Point
okay.
for number 17. How did African Americans gain political power in Louisiana during Reconstruction?
Me.
John.
The Mechanics' Institute riot stirred up public opinion in the North and led to the election of more radical Republicans to Congress. As a result, Republicans could pass stricter legislation that would force the South to give up freedom, civil rights, and the right to vote.
Correct. Point for John. How did white Louisianians respond to African American citizenship?
Me.
I will fight you.
Okay, your hand. Why is there a real hand in there?
Come at me.
Ava.
Okay. Throughout the region, many white Southerners made their opposition to it and other civil rights efforts known. Too often, this opposition manifested itself in violence and tragedy.
Correct. Point for Ava. Number 19. How did white Louisianians view carpetbaggers and scalawags during Reconstruction? Ava.
Okay. Carpetbaggers. They suspected that they would take advantage of the chaotic post-war conditions to gain political power and enrich themselves. Scalawags saw them as people who had similar beliefs regarding the power of whites, the economy and small farms, and anti-black attitudes.
Correct. Point for Ava. Number 20. What is the legacy of the Compromise of 1877 on Louisiana's social identity?
Me.
Sarah.
Louisiana Democrats helped broker a deal that would put their man in office in Baton Rouge, pull federal troops out of Louisiana, and deliver the presidency to the Republican Hayes. Southern states, especially Louisiana, began receiving increased funding from local improvements.
Correct. Point for Sarah. Number 21. Explain the legacy of sharecropping on poor people in Louisiana.
Me.
John.
On poor people in Louisiana, it had more passing similarity to the state of being federal labor or a contact, particularly where associated with large dips at a plantation. Store that effectively ties down the workers as their family to the land, therefore never allowing them to leave.
Correct. No. Point for John. Number 22. How did Jim Crow laws separate the races and turn African Americans into second-class citizens? Ava.
Jim Crow laws in various states required the segregation of races in such common areas as restaurants and theaters. The separate but equal standard established by the Supreme Court in Plessy v. Ferguson in 1896 supported racial segregation for public facilities across the nation. Even though separate but equal is used to describe public segregation, it was not equal, and African Americans were regulated to the status of second-class citizens.
Point 3. Number 23. Explain how Louisiana's literacy test, poll tax, and grandfather clause disenfranchised African Americans in Louisiana.
Me.
Ava.
During this time, several states in the South efficiently disenfranchised black voters by using stipulations such as owning property, poll taxes, and literacy tests to keep them out of the polls. These made it impossible for the African Americans to put in their vote because of the economic standpoint.
Correct. Point for Ava. Number 24. How did Plessy versus Ferguson affect life in Jim Crow, Louisiana?
Me.
John.
Plessy versus Ferguson allowed separate but equal, also known as segregation, to become law in the United States. After this, Jim Crow laws, which were a system of laws meant to discriminate against African Americans, spread across the U.S. for a decade. Any of public facility could be legally separated into whites only and blacks only.
Correct. Point for John. Number 25. Explain the social, political, and economic changes experienced by African Americans in Louisiana from Reconstruction through the Jim Crow era.
Me.
Ava.
During Reconstruction, when it appeared that African Americans enjoyed some of the protection from the federal government. What? The when shouldn't be there.
Number 25. Explain the social, political, and economic changes experienced by African Americans in Louisiana from Reconstruction through the Jim Crow era.
Me.
Ava.
During Reconstruction, it appeared that African Americans enjoyed some protection from the federal government. But in 1865, the Louisiana legislature began implementing black codes, laws that formed the basis for racial segregation. While these were attempts to unify white and black farmers in the immediate postbellum period, sharecropping allowed class and racial distinctions to persist. The Jim Crow era only deepened the segregation and discrimination that were already occurring in the African American community in Louisiana.
Correct.
Is that the end of the show?
Yay!
Yay! Wait,
It's
who
really
won?
hot in here.
Me.